My name's Daver, and in this video, I'm going to unbox... Okay, watch something else on the internet. Set up and give you my first thoughts on my SawStop. Have you seen anything else on the internet? Unbox and set up and give you my first thoughts on the SawStop Jobsite Saw Pro. Stick around. This is Daver Made. So here's a quick disclaimer. I am not an expert and I do not represent SawStop. Also, I am not a substitute, nor is this video a substitute for the setup instructions, the manual, or the steps on how to operate the saw properly and safely. So I know some people, myself included, go out on the internet, look for a video on how to do something, so I don't have to read the instructions myself, but don't cut corners when it comes to power tools. Be safe, follow every step, and reach out to SawStop or a representative of SawStop for any questions regarding the saw. I am not going to answer them in the comments. Okay, good talk. A few months ago, I purchased this SawStop saw and upgraded my existing saw. Previously, I was using a skill saw table saw, and it was a pretty good saw, but I wanted that peace of mind that the SawStop would bring me. Now, if you don't know what a SawStop does, well, it stops the saw. The technology is pretty revolutionary, and to be honest, there is nothing else that comes close. Get out of here. So how it works is that the blade is continuously carrying a signal, and when it comes in contact with the human body, the signal changes, and that change in the signal activates the safety mechanism, which then fires the brake into the blade and stops it dead, which hopefully will prevent any serious injury. It's pretty amazing if you ask me. When the safety system is activated, it does destroy the blade and it does destroy the brake cartridge that's inside, but that's a better alternative than losing a finger or worse. The technology was invented by Stephen Gass, Dr. Stephen Gass, in 1999. And I think that he had a doctorate in physics, which would make sense, but was also a woodworker. In addition to that, I believe he's a patent attorney. That's based on the research that I found on the internet. I purchased this saw from Hartville Hardware in Hartville, Ohio. The retail price for this saw was $14.99 plus tax. I also purchased an extra brake cartridge just to have on hand. Maybe bad terminology. Have it handy. You need to leave. And that cost me about $89 plus tax. The SawStop Jobsite Saw Pro is by no means cheap. However, it is the cheapest saw that SawStop offers. And for me, I felt that this saw was about on par with my experience level. Now, is it precise as a cabinet saw or one of their more expensive models? No, but where I'm at with woodworking, I think it'll do. As I mentioned before, I purchased this saw from Hartville Hardware, and I actually had them help me load it up in the back of my truck so I could drive it home. The saw only comes in one box, and I'll put the dimensions of the box below, and that's in case you want to have it shipped or you want to put it in your vehicle. Inside the box was a setup guide with step-by-step instructions on how to set the saw up. In terms of packaging, it's pretty simple. It's just one large box. Now, there's a smaller box that contains the wheels, the handles, and some hardware. But that's pretty much it. The saw comes pre-installed on the mobile cart, which is nice because that's one less thing you have to do. The only thing that you needed to do for the stand was add the wheels and add the handles. Now there will be a shipping pin in the back of the saw that you will want to make sure to remove before you start using it. If I wasn't filming, I probably could have had this set up and running within 10 to 15 minutes. Now here's what's included with the saw. Obviously it comes with the mobile cart, it comes with a 10-inch saw blade that's already installed, a brake cartridge that is installed already, and a riving knife that is also installed. It comes with a push stick and a rip fence. Both are stored on the side of the saw. In the storage compartment under the table, you will find a blade guard with attached dust collection and splitter, a miter gauge, and 3 hex keys. And on the back of the saw, you will find your blade wrenches. And I almost forgot to mention, but it does come with an insert plate as well. Let's talk about some key features on the saw. Besides the safety feature, there are some key features on this saw that I think are really worth highlighting. Let's start with the one-turn raise and lower function of the blade. It's pretty self-explanatory, but you don't know how much you need this until you have it on your saw. The next feature would be the squeeze to tilt, and I've busted my knuckles on my previous saw, releasing the mechanism to tilt the blade, and having this function to squeeze and tilt is so much better. You also have the option to micro adjust the tilt of the blade, and then you have a T-style fence that comes with the blade, and it's very easy to attach to the table and take off and store on the side underneath, and it's super smooth and easy to lock down at your measurements. There's a very easy to unlock latch that allows you to extend the table, giving you a rip capacity of 25.5 inches total. And on the fence, there is a knob that extends a support shelf when you are ripping pieces in the extended configuration. Also attached to the fence is an easy to take on and off low fence for ripping smaller work pieces safely. There is an onboard storage compartment under the table, and you can access this once you extend the table, and it helps you keep your accessories with the saw when you're moving around the shop or taking it to the job site. And speaking of moving the saw, there is a very easy to use cart that it comes installed on, and it's pretty simple to raise and lower it and move it around. Before making any test cuts, I wanted to make sure that the saw was calibrated accurately. Now, there are some instructions on calibrating and checking your saw for square or making any needed adjustments before using it. Please refer to the owner's manual for these steps. Right here, I'm just checking to make sure that everything is nice and flat and the blade is square to the table. You'll also want to check your insert plate to make sure that it is flush with the table bed. The saw should come calibrated from the factory, but it's always good to double check before you use it. All right, let's go over some specifications. This saw has a continuous 1.5 horsepower motor. The saw has a motor peak of 4 horsepower. The table dimensions when the bed is retracted is 31.25 inches wide by 24.5 deep. When the table is extended, the dimensions are 43.3 inches wide by 24.5 deep. The blade diameter for this saw, you're going to use 10-inch blades, and the dado diameter is 8 inches. The dado max width is 13/16 of an inch. The bevel angle range is -1 to 46 degrees. The weight of just the saw is 84 pounds, and with the cart is 113 pounds. The blade tilts to the left. The arbor diameter at the blade is 5/8 of an inch. The max room in front of the blade on the table is 7 7/8 of an inch, and behind the blade is 7 3/8 of an inch. The dust collection port's diameter is 2 19/16 outside and 2 1/4 inside. The riving knife and splitter thickness is 2.3 millimeters, and the table flatness measured diagonally is 0.033 inches, and that's kind of important to know. We'll come back to that later. Now that I had everything calibrated and set up right, it was time to test the saw. When you first turn on the saw, it's going to run a diagnostic, and this is the safety system initializing, which takes about 10 seconds. There are a number of diagnostic codes that are in your manual and also on the side of the saw for reference. When you see a solid green light, you're good to fire up the saw, and all you have to do is pull the large red paddle out. To power down the saw, you just push the pedal in. And the flashing green light is telling you that the saw is still spinning as it slows down. Now, there is a bypass mode, which gives you the option to turn the safety system off. Please refer to the manual for the process on how to do this. One may do this if they are using conductive materials such as green or wet wood or pressure-treated lumber or any other conductive material that might trigger the safety system. Now, I got this saw right before the holidays, and I thought it was the perfect time to run it through some real-world tests. I used this saw extensively over several weeks and did my best to utilize every feature on it. I primarily used hardwoods on this saw during the time I was testing it, and I mostly ran maple, walnut, and cherry through it. That said, I did not really have any issues using this saw while testing it, and I had a really good time using the saw. I will say that I did swap out the saw blade with a Diablo ripping blade for doing all my rip cuts, but I did use the SawStop stock blade for making any cross cuts. There are many pros with this saw, one being the safety feature. That is probably the best thing on this saw. The peace of mind helps me sleep better at night. That said, you don't want to become complacent when you have something like that on a power tool. You still want to observe proper safety practices when using a tool such as this, which is still dangerous regardless of the safety feature. Another thing that I really like about it is just the small footprint, how it's mobile, and it really fits well in my small shop. Eventually, when my skills and experience level kind of gets better, I'll probably upgrade to a better saw from SawStop. Another thing I like about it is just the storage that's on board. I like the fence, how the table expands. I'm a fan of all those features on it. It's also a powerful saw, and it's had no issues with any hardwoods that I've been using on it. Another thing I like about it is how everything is neatly stored underneath and on the side. It's just a very smartly designed saw and really good for keeping everything together. I mean, I know it's a job site saw, so that's actually very helpful if you're taking this out with you to the job site. But even in a shop like this, I mean, I put something down like a tape measure and I don't find it for a week. So it's nice that everything has a place on this and it keeps it all together. So that's really something that I dig about this saw. The dust collection is really good. I really like the fact that it has an extra vacuum port on the blade guard. I like that it comes with the riving knife and the splitter with the blade guard attached, so you can change it out for various cuts. I also like how easy it is to take out the insert plate here. It's super simple. The inside of the saw where you have to change out, the blades, is designed very well. The release switch for the riving knife, blade guard, etc. is super simple, really easy, and it's just really designed well. Some things that I don't like about the saw. Obviously the price, it's so expensive. Yes, I guess it is worth the price of having the technology in there, but it definitely puts it out of reach for a lot of, I would say, hobbyist woodworkers or people who aren't as committed. Yeah, they can get a really decent saw that doesn't have the safety feature and observe the same practices, and you'll be fine. But there's some neurotic woodworkers like myself out there who it might help to be able to have access to something with a safety feature, especially if you're going to have other people in your shop, you're going to teach your children how to use a saw. It's just nice to know that you have that just in case. Another thing I don't really like is this powder-coated aluminum table bed. As I've mentioned before, and I had another video when I first got this, there is a section of the bed that is not truly flat. It's very minimal. I'm not ripping or cross-cutting too many pieces that would go into this area, but it's still just, for the cost, I would expect it to be dead flat. I checked my previous skill saw, table saw, and it is dead flat all over the bed. So it is what it is. Would I return the saw just based on that? If I was a professional and doing this as a job, yes, I absolutely would. I would upgrade to a cast iron bed, just bite the bullet and take the hit financially to upgrade to something with a flatter bed for precision woodworking. I'm not currently there yet, so it's okay. When I get to that point, I'll cross that bridge. Another thing about the powder coated aluminum bed is that it nicks pretty easily and scratches. That was kind of a bummer. The first day I got it, I was checking the blade for square, and my combination square like nicked a piece on the bed, and the first day, like right out of the box almost, it was kind of a bummer. Another thing I don't really like about the saw is the plastic body. I would think that they would use maybe something a little bit better, maybe, I don't know, aluminum or something, but I honestly don't know why they used plastic. To save some money, I guess. It does kind of look cheap for this type of saw that costs this much money. I would hope that it wasn't, it didn't look like that, and I worry that, you know, God forbid something happens, you're gonna easily like damage it.
I almost forgot to mention, another thing that I don't really like is the miter gauge that the saw came with. I've seen other complaints about this miter gauge, and I just think for the price point, you'd get something a little bit more substantial.
However, all in all, the conclusion is that I really do love this saw. I am so happy that I got it. It has really given me that peace of mind, although I'm always making sure that I am super safe on the table saw. In the future, I would probably stick with SawStop, but if there were cheaper alternatives and that technology was in other saws, I don't know. I'd have to think about it. It's a powerful saw. It does what I need it to do. I just like how it functions and works overall. It's definitely a good purchase for me, but you have to decide whether or not it's a good purchase for you. So that's all I got in this video. I appreciate you watching. Until next time, take care.